The different types of mobile sites that are out there, because I think this is really important in terms of understanding how to set up your analytics and make sure that things are tracking correctly. So first off, there's responsive, and this is kind of the gold standard, right? You take your existing site, you shrink it down for a mobile environment, and that image there on the right is kind of what it looks like. It stacks up all the different columns and creates a nice one-column experience. It's very easy to use on your phone. The main thing to know about that is that it's served through the same URL. So a responsive site is the same code base served through the same URL. Dynamic serving is good if you have something like an airline where you know people are going to want to complete certain tasks when they're on mobile. This is where you have two different code bases. You have a mobile code base and you have a desktop code base. And they're on the same URL, they're being served to the same URL, but the code bases are completely different. This is better if you want speed, because then you don't have all of those commands from desktop dragging it down. But it can be complicated when it comes to actually putting it into practice and having your development team do it. And then the final type of site is almost deprecated at this point, but the dedicated mobile site. You can still have a dedicated mobile site. You can still have a situation where you have two completely separate URLs, maybe an m dot, maybe a www, and you can still optimize that for SEO. It's more difficult, but it is possible. So it is still a valid opportunity. However, when you put it into analytics, you will have challenges because you're on two different URLs. And analytics does not play nicely with subdomains. So you need a different profile for each subdomain. So you'll want to have a separate profile for mobile and a separate profile for desktop within the same account. A quick word about AMP. For anybody who's not familiar with what AMP is, it's called Accelerated Mobile Pages. And it's a code base that's built by Google to allow people to serve pages very, very fast by using resources that are already available on the Google servers. The main problems with AMP are that you don't have as much control over the way that the code is written. You can achieve the same levels of speed without AMP, but it's not going to get you into that fun little Google carousel that they've got there on the left there that gets lots of extra clicks and excitement and all kinds of things. And so as an SEO, I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to tell you, you need to build AMP pages. But as an analytics person, I'm going to tell you that you need to not get lost in your AMP pages to the point that you forget about your mobile site. Because there's a major problem with AMP, and that is that when you click on a page, you get a limited view of what's there. You don't get your top nav. You don't get your internal link signals. You don't get all of that stuff that helps Google understand how that page fits into the rest of your site. Therefore, they cannot use that to figure out how to rank you. Let me say that again. They cannot use and will not use AMP pages to figure out how to rank you. They will use your mobile site. So if your mobile site sucks and you have AMP pages, you have to fix your mobile site. If your mobile site is good and you have AMP pages, then you have to make sure that the content that's on your mobile site is the same content that you're delivering on desktop and AMP. Okay. Let's talk about analytics specifically. And to begin with, I've given a bunch of talks on this, and there are two dashboard and segments lessons that you guys are welcome to download and check out at your leisure. They're going to have a little bit more detail on how to create that. Wow, that's a lot of cameras. They're going to have a little bit more detail on how to create those dashboards and segments that I'm going to go into a little bit more detail here today. Keep the cameras out because I'm going to give you a sample dashboard. I am quickly becoming kind of known as the Google Analytics dashboard queen. So here is my latest Google Analytics dashboard that's free for you to use. All you have to do is log into your Google Analytics account, paste it into the browser, and decide what account you want to apply it to. Now, I do want to make very clear that I do not get to see any of your data. You do not get to see any of my data. All we're doing is sharing the template of the dashboard. But if you use this dashboard, it's already set up for mobile. It's already set up to help you track your mobile traffic and see some of the differences between mobile and desktop. However, in order to do it, you have to set up a mobile segment. So this is what you need to do. This deck is going to be available for download after the session, so don't worry about taking a picture of every. It just goes to that page without anything filtered, without any of your regular expressions included, and then you have to refilter and redo your regex and all of these things over and over again every time you come back to this dashboard. Not anymore! You can look at the URL and just take out the date section that's highlighted in red there, and then just test the URL, make sure it still loads. But that will keep all of your filters in place and instantly change it to whatever time frame you've set in your dashboard. Mine's blown? Great. Who knew that already? Okay, well, you showed me like, wow, that's the greatest thing ever. That saves me so much time. You don't have to just use these in dashboards. You can use them in anything. It's fabulous. Okay. The other thing you want to look at is the difference between mobile and desktop traffic. So if you go back to that dashboard and you have both all users and mobile traffic in, that's going to give you some information about how things are working differently. Comparative data is super, super valuable here. You can see sessions by age group might change significantly between mobile or desktop. User type, new visitor, returning visitor, like this is good stuff, right? We can see that the 65 plus range, unfortunately a little bit as expected, not very high on the mobile scale. So most of those people come to desktop. If you are selling Medicare products, then that's something to be concerned about. You need to figure out a way to make that mobile site more accessible to those people who are 65 plus, because right now they're not accessing it there. And I guarantee you they have phones, they just don't know how to use them. So anything you can do to make it easier is good. And then also, you see some differences. The sessions by user type are different depending on new visitors or returning visitors. We can see a lot more people are returning to the site when they're using a mobile phone. Maybe there's an opportunity to create a custom experience there around the returning visitor. And then social networks too. You might see really different behavior in social depending on whether it's mobile or desktop. In this case, we see that 17.3% is other when is Twitter when they're on the desktop, but not on mobile, which is kind of weird. So that would be an opportunity to go and look and see what kind of stuff you're sharing on Twitter, and say, well, is this mobile accessible? Maybe I'm sharing one of those videos that won't play on mobile. Something to test, something that your analytics says, hey, red flag, look at this. And then if you want to see mobile all by itself, all you have to do is click up there where it says on that little drop down and click remove, and that will take all users out and then put you only on mobile. So that's dashboards and just kind of an overview of some of the stuff that you can do with mobile dashboards, and particularly with the one that I gave you guys. But there's a whole other level of analytics, and Carolyn talked about this a lot, but that's speed. And there's different analytics that you want to look at for speed. There's Google Developers, there's PageSpeed Insights, which is great, but it can be frustrating on a couple of different levels. GTmetrix is one of my favorites in terms of checking pages. It incorporates YSlow as well as a couple of others. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. You can get a lot of data. With the Google PageSpeed Insights, it breaks out desktop and mobile, But it doesn't give detailed information like time to first byte. It isn't directly tied to SEO because it just goes down a checklist and says, yes, you have this, or no, you don't have this. It doesn't give you the detailed type of information that something like a GTmetrix is going to give you. Now with this, you can see the difference, like in Sephora. Is there anybody in the room from Sephora? Okay, good, because they really need some work on their page speed. If anybody is looking for a client pitch, that's probably the one. So they really need some work on their page speed, and you can see that fully loaded time of 13.4 seconds is absolutely ridiculous. So the nice thing about GTmetrix, as I said before, is it's going to give you this kind of different types of examples, different types and ways to look at the speed. You can look at, these kind of standard, these are the kind of things that typically Google's going to talk about, like browser caching and optimizing images and that sort of thing. A little freebie for you. With optimizing images, make sure your design team is aware that most modern browsers won't support past a certain DPI. So they really don't have to have these print quality images on the website because the browser can't support it anyway. So get them to compress it. And then we get into the waterfall example, which is even better because this is going to show you specifically what it is that's stopping your page from loading. You can see exactly what things are taking so long. In this case, it was a third-party script, so not too much we can do about that. But we can optimize everything else around it and maybe look at using a different third party. The dashboard that I gave you gives you a particular report called DOM, which is Document Object Model, and page load time in seconds. This is going to give you your average page load time, and it is set to sort by the highest page load times on your site. So this is going to give you a real quick view from Google Analytics of what pages are having the biggest issues. And what you'll see is that sometimes it's pages that would really benefit from being better. In this case, it's the application page. This is a situation with this particular client where SEO didn't see this, PPC didn't see this because it's not a page that would typically be indexed by search engines. But good grief, 24 seconds to load? No wonder our completed applications are so low. Very easy thing to pick out and say, okay, there's a problem. The really exciting part is if you click on that heading there, it's going to take you to this page, which is a kind of hidden portion of Google Analytics that you wouldn't find unless you were going and clicking on every single little submenu. This is going to show you your average document content load time across your entire site. And you can get into what you're doing on a more macro level. Because one of the most frustrating things about dealing with page speed is that you have to go page by page by page. And anybody who's ever tried to do that in Google PageSpeed Insights and then triggered that damn CAPTCHA wants to pull their hair out. So this is a way to zero in on the ones that you actually need to look at and not have to look at all of them. It drives me crazy. The other little thing in the dashboard that you can use is the page speed suggestions. So the little widget just says click to page speed suggestions. Like this little widget, the data that's there, that little graph, I think it's just sessions over time. It's not even anything useful. But if you click through, it's going to take you to this little part, again, little hidden part of Google Analytics that a lot of people don't know is there, where you can get your page speed suggestions across your entire site that have already been looked at by Google. And guess what? You can click on each one of those where it says 6 total, 4 total, and it will open up Google PageSpeed Insights and give you all of the suggestions for that particular page with no CAPTCHA. It's fabulous. So look for opportunities. Really do your research. In this case, we were looking at the top mobile pages for organic, and we discovered that this these terms and disbursement terms and loan limits. These were really high volume pages on mobile, which is weird because they're basically terms and conditions pages. And so when we started digging into it, we discovered that what it actually was it was an email newsletter that was going out. So I'm going to come back to this. It was an email newsletter that was going out that had a little pixel on it by mistake that clicked to the terms and conditions page, and when people were scrolling with their finger, they were clicking on it. Well, it kept coming in as a hit, and what we noticed was when we looked at the time on page, it was less than a second because people realized, oh crap, I clicked on something and went back. The bigger story here is that it was from an email, but being tracked as organic traffic. So we went and looked at attribution and looked at the channel groupings and discovered that somebody had put email as a channel grouping into the organic channel. So yeah, never did figure out who did that, but man, if I do. So yeah, you find these crazy things, right? All you gotta do is look. They're sitting right there waiting for you to look at them. Here's another example. Top mobile pages by Direct. We discovered that the unsubscribe button was huge. Huge. Most popular Direct mobile page. Guess what? Same problem. It was the unsubscribe link from the email. No attribution on it, ended up falling into Direct. But if it had been a really high organic page, well, first off, that's an indication that we probably ought to do something about that email newsletter, because wow, that sucks if it's got that many unsubscribes. Maybe there's a pop under or exit offer opportunity there, or a one-click unsubscribe that we could do so that we don't have to actually load a page. Maybe there's something specific to mobile. Maybe when people are getting their email on mobile, they're looking at it and they're going, this looks horrible on mobile, I don't want this newsletter anymore, unsubscribe. All kinds of things that could be happening here that we won't know until we dig into it. So I'm going to wrap up with just a couple of other mobile reports that you might want to look at. Geographic and near me queries and how people are acting with those. Of course, you can't look at queries specifically for organic, which is really frustrating, but you can look at pages like your locations page, like your location finder page, that sort of thing, and guess that it's probably those queries that are coming to that page. You can link your AdWords account and see how your AdWords are performing on mobile. Look at your average time on page, look at your bounce and exit rates, cart funnels, what's not working or working super well on mobile, and how can you use that to improve overall. So 3 key takeaways again. Mobile analytics, absolutely critical. Take that dashboard, at least start looking at it. Even if you're not really sure what to do with it, start looking at it, and the ideas are going to start popping out at you. If you use the dashboard, it's really easy because then you can just kind of look at it every once in a while. You can even set it to email you once a week. Just make mobile analytics some element of what you do on a daily basis, or a weekly, I'd say for monthly basis, look at mobile analytics. Focus on the differences between mobile and desktop and how people are engaging on those two different platforms. And then look for those opportunities where you might be able to provide some custom experiences.
Don't need Google to understand our news pages and how they fit into the overall theme of the site and all that other stuff. We just want the eyeballs. For pages that you actually need to rank, though, I think they haven't quite overcome that. They're working at it. I'm sure they're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, AMPA is really more about user experience than SEO necessarily, except from the standpoint that it gets you into that carousel. So it does tend to get you a lot more organic traffic on a short-term basis while it's sitting in that carousel. But it really does have some problems in terms of like didn't really have time to go into it, but for example, when you saw that one slide in my deck that had AMP and it had the thing across the top with all the little dots, well, the point I make there when I have more time is that all of those little dots are for other sites. Those are for the other things in AMP. So if you click through, and the example was from The Verge, if you click through to The Verge and then you swipe to go to the next thing, it's going to take you to like Gizmodo or something. It's not going to keep you on The Verge, which for user experiences, hey, that's pretty fun. But for a publisher, you want to keep them on your site.
Well,
So
if you're selling something, the last thing you want is for somebody to go, oh, look, they have it cheaper.
yeah, well, that too.